Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hey everybody, this is Paul Carruthers, and this is our weekly MotoAmerica podcast, Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. As mentioned, I'm Carruthers, I'm the Carruthers half of the duo, and I'm joined as always by Sean Bice. And how are you today, Sean?
Yeah, I'm really good. In fact, we don't usually do this on a Friday. We usually do it earlier in the week, but Friday it is, and I'm in a Friday mood right now. So very good. I'm feeling great.
Well, we normally have stars on our show, but when we have a superstar, then sometimes you have to rearrange your schedule so that the superstar can do things when he needs to do it because of his immense busy schedule. So that's kind of the place we're in now. Anyway, look, so our guest today is Cameron Beaubier. He doesn't really need much of an introduction, but I think I was so happy and relieved with his results in the United States Grand Prix held last weekend at COTA. It was I don't know. I was just so happy. As Cameron knows, because I drive him nuts. I text him all the time. I try to keep him pumped up. I'm like his manager that doesn't make any money, kind of a thing. But we were in Nashville, Tennessee, kind of on a vacation and also for a wedding. And I went to, do you remember Danielle Teal, right?
Cameron? I do. Well, we haven't talked to Cameron yet, but yes, I do absolutely remember Danielle. Been a while since I talked to her.
So we all went to lunch, and it was her and her husband and some other people. And I was watching the race on my phone during the race. Like I couldn't even have the volume on, and I was trying to sneak it. And half the people at the table didn't want to know what was going on because they were going to watch it later. So it was like this whole stressful thing. So I actually think sometimes I stress over the races more than Cameron does. But at this time, he came through, and I mean, I think it just made so many people happy. And obviously the reception he got at the race itself, when I got back to the house, I was able to watch it with sound, so I could kind of appreciate a little bit more about the good things they were saying about him, and also how the crowd reacted to having an American there. I was kind of bummed and a little bit sad that Joe Roberts didn't have a better time, because I know that was probably really frustrating for him.
Yeah, for sure.
And he deserves better than what he got. So anyhow, let's chat with Cameron a little bit. First of all, Cameron, let's start with that race. I mean, did that feel like winning to you?
Pretty close. It felt so good just to get like a good solid result and run up front with those guys, just to prove to myself I could run with those guys towards the front on familiar territory, because there's been a lot of times this year where I've just taken a beating, crashing and lack of confidence going to new tracks and just wondering if I can. There's been a handful of times where I'm just wondering if I can cut it over there. You know what I'm saying? So, and just to come in and see the team, how happy they were, and the amount of attention we got from the crowd and everything like that, it was just it was a pretty special feeling. And I was only 5th place, but in the moment it kind of felt like a win to me after the season we had.
Cameron, I want to ask you about that because, knowing you, I think I know what you're going to say, but maybe not. I mean, obviously we were all thrilled with your 5th, and I know you were too, but you probably thought, given the way that race went, man, I wish I would have done better than that, because I was in a higher position. I led the race into the first turn. So, I mean, 5th, like you said, but did you kind of feel like, gee, I wish I would have gotten 3rd or on the podium or something? Is that how you kind of felt, or are you completely satisfied?
To be honest, I was pretty satisfied with the 5th, because I rode my freaking butt off. Like, I rode as hard as I could the whole race, and that's a long race around that place, especially with how bumpy the track is now. and how hot it was. But then like once that wears off, like you being, the tiredness wears off and you're sitting there at dinner that at night, or if you watch the race back, and I was like, I was only 5 seconds off the leader. And I know I made a couple mistakes. I hit a false neutral going into turn one. I was dicing it up with Arbolino. I felt like that kind of slowed me down a little bit. It slowed both of us down a little bit. And a couple other little mistakes I made that I could have cleaned up. And it's always like a what if, but like I said, like if you told me I was going to get 5th place, like going into the weekend, I would have been like, sign me up. Where do I sign? So, yeah, it was just nice to just start the weekend off on the front foot and stay on the bike. Like the last few rounds I've stayed on the bike, which has been nice because that hasn't been the case pretty much all year. I've been crashing and just trying to play catch up every race we go to, like I show up at these tracks, even though I've seen some of them 11 years ago or something like that. It still feels like a new track, and I'll roll out and these guys or I've said it in the past, but they're within a second of the lap record, like 5 laps into first practice. And I'm just trying to learn everything and learn my brake points and gears and just learning new tracks. So, and then we like chip away, get somewhat close come Sunday. But yeah, it's just a grind. So that was so nice to just race at home in front of the home crowd, in front of first race my parents and my brother and some of my family got to this year. So that was cool. And it was just an amazing weekend.
Okay, so there was one point in the race, I can't tell you exactly when it was, but you tucked the front real bad. I don't know if it was at the corner at the end of the back straight or someplace else. I know it was a left.
Yeah, it was the corner onto the back straight.
Oh, okay. So that right there symbolizes a lot, because you lost the front and you didn't crash, but there's so many times that you've lost the front like that and crashed, and it's a hair's different, right?
Yeah, definitely. That same tuck that I had in the race, I've crashed like that so many times this year. It's like right when I'm off the brake and like trying to get onto the gas. And man, that's hit my confidence so bad this year so many times. And I've been working on it pretty hard. We put a handbrake on my bike, and I've just been using the rear brake a lot more, and I think that's really helped. And I think also just like our setup is a little bit better. We're more on track of what the other guys are. And yeah, big thanks to Stu for that, for working so hard, and the whole team really. So yeah, it's been cool, and just learning and getting more comfortable with that bike. And I think one big thing too at COTA, I've obviously have some laps there racing Superbikes and a couple tests that we've had, preseason MotoAmerica tests. And I know that place, I know that track. And it was nice to just really get the most out of the Moto2 bike and like ride the thing hard and like actually have something to compare it to. Cause I haven't had anything, like I haven't ridden a track that I've ridden on a Superbike on my Moto2 bike before. So I think that was good for me. And yeah.
Cameron, I was super nervous about this round because of the pressure, and also the fact that I felt like if that event would have been at Laguna Seca, a track that you do so well at, and it is truly your home track, I would have felt more comfortable about it myself for you. I was worried. Me too. Yeah, I was worried about COTA because it's not your favorite track. I mean, you've had some tough times at COTA in the past, but would you say that was the best race you ever had at COTA, even considering wins that you've had at that track?
Yeah, I'd say I've had a couple rides there though too, like in 2000, the last time we were there, 2019, where I truly felt I got everything out of my bike. Like I rode so hard, and that was just one of those tracks where I felt like it favored the Suzuki compared to our bike, or the Yamaha, along with like a couple other tracks we went to, but then there was better tracks for the Yamaha also on the MotoAmerica calendar. So that was one of those tracks where you start out the year and you kind of struggle a little bit, and you're kind of up against it a little bit going into that race. But yeah, I'd say that was the best race I've had at COTA for sure.
And this, all right, here's a big question for you. This is something, I mean, we all kind of think we know the answer to this, but how important is it, track familiarity? And obviously COTA, you've had a lot of laps there, even though, again, it wasn't your favorite track or isn't the track you've always done real well on, but just being there, being at home, I guess. But how important is it to know the track? And then with that in mind, what are your thoughts for Misano coming up, since you've been there before? How talk about that a little bit.
I think it is really important, at least for me, and maybe it's a little different for other riders too. Like what Garrett's been able to do, or what he was able to do last year, like showing up to tracks he's never seen before and be as competitive as he was and up front, like that was super impressive. Seeing what like Pedro Acosta has been able to do, like showing up at new tracks and like winning and getting on the podium and doing what he's done, like that's freaking incredible. I think for me, like, I don't know if maybe it just takes me a little bit longer to really dial in the track or what, but, and also I think too, me qualifying so bad is really like hidden our improvement throughout the weekends, because I've if you look at like the times and stuff and break down the race, like I'm actually I really am like improving throughout the weekend. You just can't see it position wise. And there, once we started going, like after the first third of the series, because the season started out pretty good. So after that first third of the series, then we start going to these new tracks. And man, I like hit a wall. I was struggling so bad, and I was just like riding as hard as I could. And like in practice, I'm outside the top 20 and like around 20th. And I'm just like, gosh, man, like beating my head against the wall. And I was just not having fun. And I think a really good thing for me is just Stu calming me down. And he's like, man, like, let's look at the time gap to the leader rather than the position, because the class is so competitive. I mean, like it's a good example like Joe right now. Like obviously Joe, he's an incredible rider, has a ton of talent, and he's just been a tick off like the past couple rounds. And when you're a tick off, like it's the difference between like top 5 and 20th in that class. It's just crazy. So yeah, it's been tough, but I mean, it's the World Championship, and I'm getting a full dose of it.
When I watch Cameron, and as you know, I watch like every single bit of it, but and I watch on timing and scoring and blah blah blah. But it seems to me like you're more stressed out during qualifying and practice than you are during the race. I almost get this impression like the qualifying is more difficult for you. And I know you're learning and you're going through through a bunch of stuff during the weekend, but it honestly seems like when you get to the race, you're just like, okay, cool. Now I get to go race my freaking motorcycle. Is that accurate?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like some of the lap times these guys can throw down on, and it's not like we're putting on a softer tire or nothing. Like we put on the soft in qualifying, but a lot of the times we race the soft in the race, yeah, we line up with the soft in the race, and it's just crazy, like the amount of time they can pull out for a couple laps in qualifying. And I haven't really been able to do that. So but I know that like come the race, like I do have like a good pace. So yeah, like I'm always looking forward to the race. And a big thing, I mean, you'll see too, like the Q1, like if you don't advance to Q2, it makes life really, really hard on you going into the race.
Right.
And sometimes Q1 like is just as fast as Q2 or just a tick off, you know? So all those guys, man, they're all really, really fast.
Okay, so you're coming off a good race, obviously, at your home round at Coda. You qualified well, you made it straight to Q1 or Q2, and you finished 5th in the race. Do you go to Misano a bit different than what you showed up at Coda or at any of the other rounds? I mean, do you feel like, okay, I can do this, I can race with these guys, chill the F out, and just go ride the motorcycle, qualify well, and then race with them?
Yeah, in a perfect world, yeah. I mean, I'd love to be able to take that's the plan. Like, I'm just going to take what I learned and like the confidence I built at Coda and just try to roll it into the rest of the year. You know, Misano was a tough one because it rained Friday, and so I got 2 practices in the wet on Friday, and then we had one practice on Saturday of dry, and then warm up was dry, and that's the only dry time I had going into the race. So it was a pretty tough race for me. I made a ton of mistakes, and then like after halfway, I was able to find my rhythm, and I was starting to piece together the track pretty good and do some good times and stuff like that. So that yeah, I'm really looking forward to Misano. I'm really looking forward to Portimao. I had it was my first top 10 of the year was Portimao, and I really like that track. We got a test there before the race and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to those 2 rounds. And then Valencia, I've been there before, you know, a long time ago, but at least I know the place, and the place doesn't look too hard. So, but yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to just like ending the season on a high note, and yeah, just getting this year done with and take everything I learned and roll it into next year.
So let's talk about ending the season a little bit, Cameron. So I was thinking about this the other day. You know, MotoAmerica at one time was going to go to Coda, but we didn't end up going there. So our season ended at Barber. So if you had been still in our series this year, your season would have been over for several weeks, but you've got quite a season still going. Is it weird? Is there any fatigue with the fact that the Moto2 season is so much longer than MotoAmerica? Does it feel like it's a grind, or are you glad that there are more rounds because you're still figuring it out?
I mean, I'm not going to lie there. When I'm struggling like week in, week out, I'm like, gosh, man, we still got like 9 races to go. Like, what did I get myself into type of thing. But then like I have a good result at Coda, and I'm ready to go. Like I want to keep racing. So I actually, I mean, it is crazy when you look at it. I'm literally racing double the amount of a MotoAmerica season, and they just put the provisional calendar up for next year, and it's 21 rounds, and it's just like holy moly.
All that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But I mean, truthfully, I like it. When you're in Europe, I mean, it's an hour flight to wherever you're going, and I like the back-to-back races, just like staying on the bike, and yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And for me too, as a racer, I like and as a spectator, like I like the build up to a Sunday race, you know, like I really like being able to have a full day practice, and then practice and qualifying Saturday. And then it's just like that build up to Sunday. Like I like that. So, yeah. And I think moving forward, like after this year, I mean, everything's new to me. Right. So I think it'll get a little bit easier next year. Just like knowing where I'm going and knowing what airport I'm flying into, like all that little stuff.
I want to go back to prior to the 2015 year. And this is, you and I were teammates, Cameron. And so I remember this pretty vividly. That bike that was the iteration of the R1 prior to the kind of the current one, although it changed a little bit recently, but it's still pretty similar. That you never really got along with that first bike. That we called that Josh Hayes's bike. He developed it. You never were real comfortable with the front end of that bike. And then lo and behold, the 2015 R1 comes in and you're comfortable with it. You got a better feel for the front end and all the sweetness and light. Is this issue or this learning this bike this year with the front end and this tucking thing you're talking about, does it relate at all to the problems or struggles you had with that previous iteration of the R1?
Not really. I think it's just more so the GP style chassis and like just like how you have to ride those things. Like they're so rigid, you just can't get away with as much on a super bike than you can as riding a super bike. And just like not having the electronic aids that I've relied on so much in the past. Like, I mean, what we've been able to do with the super bikes the past couple of years, like changing the engine brake to just make it perfect corner by corner and all that stuff where you don't have to ride with the rear brake, you know, and the traction control and obviously like the torque maps, all that stuff, like and especially working with Stamboli last year, like he made it pretty easy on us. You know, you just go ride the thing as hard as you can, give him feedback, and he looks at the data and he's like, oh, that we need a little more engine brake here, a little more TC here, all that stuff. So now I'm going completely backwards and I'm having to do stuff that I used to do, you know, on a 600, like drag the rear brake around and stuff like that. I think that's and along with like learning tracks and it's hard to like work on technique and stuff like that when you're down on time. You know, when you're down on time, you just want to go crazy and go as fast as you can, and like your technique kind of goes out the window. So yeah, that like I said, that's what was so nice about riding Coda, like riding a track that I'm familiar with and that I've had quite a few laps at on a super bike, and really feeling like I was riding the bike hard and getting the most out of the bike was good.
All right, Cameron, how many times have you crashed this year?
Probably like more than the last 3 seasons.
Well, I was going to say more than ever. Like if you added them all up for your entire career, it's probably about the same.
Yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough.
I don't know this for a fact, but I mean, probably 90% of them are just front end crashes though, right?
Most of them, yeah.
So they don't hurt.
No, but I had a good one in Austria, that high side out of turn 1. That wasn't very fun.
Yeah.
These things are wicked too, man. They when they slide, and you let off the throttle, like they buck hard. Just this chassis is so stiff. They're mean little bikes.
Well, don't let off. You know, I'm just coaching here, you know.
Always.
Okay, I want to tell you, Sean, that before the season started, our MotoAmerica season, I was talking to Cameron, and Cameron actually predicted what happened and said that Jake Gagne would win this championship.
Incredible. Yeah.
Right, Cam?
Yeah, I did. I knew it.
So you just knew how well the team worked and how well that bike works, and you just knew a second season with him on that, it'd be a difficult combination to beat?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, being teammates with Jake too, like I've always known how much just raw talent Jake has and how good of a rider he is. And yeah, I just knew, especially his first year, how fast he was on that thing. And obviously I was pretty dialed in. I've been riding that bike for a handful of years. And yeah, it was like a little bit different with Richard in control of everything. It was a little bit different bike, but it was better, you know? And for how fast Jake was, like right out of the gate, and some of the races, like for example, Pittsburgh, when he smoked the clutch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been, it would have been like a battle for the win. that people didn't really get to see. So, yeah, I'm freaking proud of him. Like it's pretty cool what he's been able to do. I've sent him a couple texts throughout the year. I'm like, easy on my track records, man. Like, come on, like, back off. Like, you can go win the race, but just stay off the track records. But no, it's yeah, it's pretty incredible what they've been able to do. And I mean, all those guys, like seeing my buddy Cam P, like how well he's stepped up. I know people were like expecting a lot of him out of this year, but for him to, like, for how dominant he was in super stock, but for him to go run with Jake at times, and obviously Maddie and all those guys, and put it on the podium and get that win at Barber, that was pretty incredible. And yeah, it's gonna be exciting next year, depending on what happens, who goes where, and it's gonna be good.
Was it odd for you? I know you get to see the races and stuff, but was it odd for you to watch Tony ride a Yamaha? Because at first it was difficult for us. I mean, we're like, what's going on?
It was weird. It was super weird. Like, it was it'd be like me riding the Yosh bike or something, right. You know? It's super weird. But I think it was really cool. And it's been cool. Like, Tony, he was in Barcelona, and we talked a little bit. We've actually been like messaging back and forth quite a bit this year. Just yeah, he went out on track in Barcelona, and he has a really good eye for things, because I mean, the MotoGP paddock was his home for so many years. And yeah, he was able to help me a little bit with things, and point me in the right direction. And yeah, it's been cool.
You know, Cameron, it was interesting that Matthew Miles was down at Coda, and I talked to him from time to time, and he's had this quiver of questions to ask you. And so Dorna wanted him to ask you a question, and he had one ready to ask you. So I know that he talked to you down there, but he had a few other ones. And I was telling him, I said, hey, I want to cover some of that same stuff. So I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for a couple of things I want to ask you about. One of them that he mentioned, and it's an interesting thing, is the fact that you now are on Dunlop tires. Are they like the Dunlop tires from last year, or are they completely different Dunlop tires than you're used to? Hard to tell.
They're different. They're for sure different. The front tire is, I mean, it's just a wider front wheel and a wider tire. And I think, I mean, it's just the bike too. The bike is it's so hard to tell, like, the difference, if how much a difference is in the tire, or if it's just the bike and stuff like that. But I mean, I wouldn't say the tires are like that much different. I was riding a stock R1 just to practice on earlier this year. And I mean, they really didn't feel a ton different. Like, the grip wise, they felt pretty similar, but I just think those Moto2 chassis, like, how fast you can go through the corners on those things is just like incredible, especially riding at Coda, like a track that I've had laps on a Superbike, and just carving through some of those corners, like the first section of Coda, all those SXS sections, how fast you can go on a Moto2 bike is incredible. I think we were doing like the same lap times we did on a Superbike, and they obviously don't have near the horsepower the Superbikes have. So
your teammate Marcos Ramirez, he hangs off the bike a lot. He's way over on the bike, and you're a little more upright on the bike, but maybe you've changed your style a little bit, certainly from last year, I'm sure you have. But during this year, have you changed your style, and do you hang off more than you used to, or is that just the way Marcos does it and other riders, and that's not really your thing?
I think I have, honestly. My guys have told me, especially compared to the beginning of the year, when I was like riding it a lot more like a Superbike, like in neutral position on the bike, I feel like lately I have them hanging off quite a bit more. When I watch the races back and stuff too, like, I actually have my head on the inside of the bubble, which has helped me a lot. Like, you just have to really, like, you have to get off the inside of the bike to get the thing to turn, and just like to be able to pick the thing up on the exits. And it's funny because I've been struggling with that pretty good a lot of the year. And you think I wouldn't, but it's literally just picking up the bike. And coming from a Superbike background, like that's what you do. You know, you can be a lot more point and shoot on a Superbike, and you pick the thing up and get it on the fat part of the tire and get it out of the corner. But that's what I was struggling with so much on this bike, is like just getting the thing off the edge of the tire and getting it picked up. And yeah, Marcos he's really good at that. Like it's crazy the lean angle he carries. And it's funny too, like more towards the beginning of the year, like I felt like I was hanging off more. Like I feel like I'm hanging off. And then you look at pictures and it's like, no, like I'm not even close. So yeah, that's been something I've been working on, along with, 100 other things.
Let's kind of continue talking about teammates for a minute. I want to ask you about your new teammate for next year, Sean Dillon Kelly. We know that Marcos is going to a different team. So do you think with Sean going directly from Super Sport, a middleweight bike, to Moto2, which is, I know it's a middleweight bike, it's nowhere near anything like a Super Sport bike, but do you think that transition is going to be easier from Sean than it was for you to go from a super bike to a Moto2 bike?
I think so. I think he's ready to go to Moto2. And I think a couple of years on a super bike, even one, will obviously he'd be racing some really good guys in MotoAmerica. And that would help him. But I think just on a bike standpoint, he's ready to go. Like he's proved his talent and his racecraft and all that stuff in America. And I think that it would hurt him more than anything, just riding a super bike rather than just getting right on a Moto2 bike. Yeah, he rode incredible this year. And I think he's on his way to Europe right now to do a couple track days on some of the tracks we're going to race next year, and just get some more seat time on a Moto2 bike before we go testing this winter. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited to have an American teammate. And it's funny because I look at it like different than I used to, like me and Garrett coming up together, like we want to beat each other. Like, super bad, obviously. And obviously I want to be the guy and like beat SDK or whatever, but like, I want to help him, I want him to succeed along with Joe. It's funny because people ask me about like the American rivalry and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, I want to beat him, but like, I want the best for Joe. It's funny because I feel like 5 years ago, I wouldn't really think like that. So yeah, it's funny.
Well, it's nice to have somebody else thrown in the deep end with you,
Yeah, exactly.
It's that misery loves company thing. Okay, so I have noticed a difference in your riding style. You're not quite Jason Aguilar yet, but you're getting there. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, you've raced obviously in the back half of the field. We won't elaborate on that, but you know what I mean. And then you just got a chance to race at the very front. There's probably not a lot of difference, is there? Are you watching like Gardner and going, oh man, I could learn this or that, compared to when I'm racing with, Joe Schmo from Spain in the back? Or
yeah, I was talking to Stu about that. I was like, yeah, I went from Misano. I qualified on the second to last row, and then Coda was on the second to first row. It was pretty nice. It was a nice flip flop. And racing up front with those guys, it was nice, honestly, because back there, like in the mid pack, I'll say at the mid pack, I like the mid pack better than the back of the pack.
Yeah, let's go with mid.
Yeah, good.
Well, I'll
it's
say
kind of like the glass half full thing.
But everyone is trying to move forward, and it's so hard to get in a rhythm, especially at the beginning of the race, because everyone is just dive bombing you and you're trying to move forward. So you're doing the same, and you're ruining everyone's rhythm and along with everyone else. And up front, it was a lot different. Like I was the guy like kind of screwing people up, you know, like when I passed Remy, I kind of like ruined the rhythm for a second, like in a couple areas, you know, because I was excited, you know, I was first time I was up front, and then I finally calmed down, and yeah, it was so much better. Just getting in a rhythm early, and just not having to pass and get past and pass and get past, and dealing with everyone in the mid pack, you know. So that was super, super nice. And hopefully I get more of that moving forward.
What was the race where you dive bombed everybody? Remind me.
Oh, geez, that was Austria.
Yeah.
Hey, I told Joe though, I was like, "Day, that was your fault." Like they gave me your penalty, man. I went up the inside and he shut the door on me so hard. I went over the curb, and I was like, "That was your fault." And it wasn't all his fault, but I wouldn't say it was all my fault either. So
That was a double long lap penalty, right?
yeah, that was brutal. That was the first time, and hopefully the last time I had to do a long lap penalty. That was no fun, especially at that track.
Yeah, those are no good. And it was very reminiscent of your old teammate Garrett Gerloff, I thought, for a minute there.
Oh man.
That poor kid. Damn it.
I feel bad for Garrett, man. Yeah, it's been tough because he's been, especially at Portimao, I was like, yeah, I think he's gonna turn it around and get back on his form, because he was super fast in practice, and then he didn't have the best qualifying, but I knew like he had really good pace. But yeah, it seems like he's just getting stuck like right in the back of that group fighting for the podium, you know. So I think he'll get it figured out, and yeah, he'll be good.
I think his confidence just took a bit of a hit, and
yeah,
he's probably like, oh man, I can't keep doing that. And then you know what happens when that starts creeping in.
Exactly.
He's still top independent rider too. I mean, I've kind of gone to looking at that and like, well, he's winning that battle. So that's good to see. But
you know, what was pretty cool to see is how well Baz did. I think that was really super good for MotoAmerica and everyone, you know, because a lot of the time, I mean, over in Europe, people just don't know the level of the Superbike class in MotoAmerica, and I think it really showed. You know, like it showed how good Jake is.
Right. Yeah, I think it helped us a lot.
It definitely did. So Cameron, this is a good segue. You mentioned we talked about Garrett, and you mentioned Loris. So one of the things I always remember and always like about Brian J. Nelson's photo galleries is when you go in there, you'll often see a group of riders, Superbike riders that are kind of congregated doing a little bench racing. You know, a couple of them are on scooters, a couple are on bicycles, and you guys are all talking. And usually there's Paul Carruthers among that group too, most of the time, talking amongst everybody. So
giving him shit.
Yeah. So this year it's the same thing. So it got me to thinking about what's the culture like in the Moto2 paddock. Do you hang around with certain riders? Do you talk to certain riders? You know, obviously the language barrier is difficult. I'm sure Joe, you talked to Joe, you know, what's it like with your teammate? And do you still get that same camaraderie that you had in Superbike, or is it a different thing altogether?
I wouldn't say it's like MotoAmerica. Like that's one thing I loved about MotoAmerica is I like all the friends I had, just hanging out, going to dinner, and yeah, just really like enjoying the weekends with and racing with your friends. You know, that was super fun, and I definitely miss that. But I mean, I think it's like that. You know, I feel like the Italians, they hang out, they have like their group, stuff like that, and obviously some Spanish guys, and everyone's like really cool that I've met and talked to. But I feel like in the MotoGP paddock, like everyone kind of does their own thing a little bit more so than other championships. But yeah, I was able, like I got out, I golfed with the Binders in Austria. That was really cool to meet them and hang out with them a little bit. And it was cool because they grew up with Maddie and Camp. So we had like a mutual friend, and yeah, my teammate Marcos, he's cool. But like I said, everyone kind of does their own thing, and they spend more time with their team than anything.
Let's talk about the fact that you are engaged and you are going to be married in December. And I've been wondering about this all year, Cameron. Has that been on your mind at all, or have you put it completely out of your mind? I mean, obviously there's a lot of planning. I know that Shelby has to do a lot, her family, maybe your family as well. But has that been any kind of a factor in pressure this year at all, that you have that to come look forward to at the end of the year?
No, I'm like, not pressure. It's honestly crazy that it's only it's like a month and a half out or something like that. It's at the beginning of the year, I was like, yeah, let's get married in December. Like we talked about when we should do the wedding. And I was like, well, the winter is pretty much the only time we can, when we're going to be home, and when it's convenient, because there's no way we could get married in the summer. It would have been way too hectic planning and all that stuff. And I mean, truthfully, I haven't planned anything. Like Shelby's done everything with her family and her friends, and I just got to show up with my tux. So that's pretty cool. She's made it pretty easy on me, and I'm looking forward to it though. Looking forward to getting the season done with and come back home, get married. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about, honestly, because at the beginning of the year, like, it seemed so far away, and now it's like here.
Has she made it easy on you this year? I mean, has it been great to have Shelby over there? Is it, I know you've seen Garrett. I don't know how much you hang around with him, but has it been helpful for her to be around and kind of keep you grounded?
Yeah, but she went over there for a handful of races at the beginning of the year, but that was pretty much it. Like, she came home and she has a job and stuff, so she's been working here and taking care of the house. And yeah, so she hasn't been over there a ton with me, and that's been a little tough, being away from her and my family. Yeah, that's been a little tough, but I think next year will be a little different. She'll spend some more time over there with me, and she's going to go back for the rest of the season here next week with me. So that'll be cool. And awesome. Yeah, it's been super relieving, honestly, knowing everything's dialed here at home. Like, when she's here, she's keeping up on the house, and along with her parents, Ray and Tammy, like, they've been, when she does go over there with me, they'll watch Dixie, our dog, and they'll keep up on the house, like keep the grass mowed down, all that stuff. So that's been super helpful. And yeah.
See, Sean, he's probably in the best. Everybody would want to be in his position, really, because you just go away for the summer and you're like, hey, take care of everything when I'm gone, and I'll see you at the wedding.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, you got it made. All right, Cameron, we're gonna let you go, and we appreciate you talking.
Hey, why didn't you guys go to Coda?
Wow. Yeah, I felt like an idiot.
I was planning on going with our buddy Casey, but we just couldn't get it to work, and then we were worried about being able to get good credentials, and I'm not one that wants to sit in the grandstands. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I wanted like a suite with champagne and stuff, and I couldn't quite pull it off. So instead, I went to Nashville for a wedding. But anyway, you've made us all proud at Coda, and we most of us, including Sean and I, have known that you were able to do this. It just took a little longer than we wanted, but I think it's only going to get better from here. And like I said before, I think if you go into Mazzano, the same Cameron Beaubier that left Coda, I think you'll be in a good position to get that thing qualified well and race near the front again. So good luck with that. And thanks to coming on and say hi to the family and stuff for us, and have a good rest of the season there. And then we might even show up at your wedding or something. We'll crash it.
I love it.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Cameron.